Hi everyone, Tasha Jordan here. Great to be with you today. A couple of things we want to go over today, and we are looking at levels of measurement. So if you're creating a survey, you're going to want to review this section a little bit better. We're going to get into surveys and how to create a great survey a little bit later in this course. But another kind of wonderful thing that we can do when you're looking at this and you're looking at levels of measurement, and you've got nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio on this page, you can actually use any kind of OpenAI tool to help you work through some of your assessment, right? So let's say you are thinking about a type of data that you want to collect, then you could actually ask OpenAI, maybe ChatGPT, should I use nominal? Should I use ordinal? Should I use interval? Or should I use a ratio if I have this data? And you'll be specific there in your prompt. And I want to get this result. And so, this is the beauty of the technology that we have. You can definitely use it to help you create some of these tools, some of these surveys. Now, obviously, the point is you have to understand how to edit anything you do on ChatGPT or any other OpenAI platform. And obviously we know we would not use proprietary information or put any kind of proprietary information with PII, for example, into ChatGPT or another OpenAI program. But as you kind of go through this chapter and you think about levels of measurement, another interesting thing is the dashboards of most of the tools that we use now will already give you this information. But it's up to you to understand how it was created, how we are measuring data. So it's important for you to grasp these concepts, of course, as a master. You are getting a master's degree. Let's talk a little bit about reliability because that's a big part of this chapter. So we want to make sure that if you take a look at the definition here, this is a good example. Imagine you are purchasing a bunch of bananas at a grocery store that provides electronic scales for customers to use. You put your banana on the scale and it reads 1.5 pounds. Now if you lift them up and put it back, it reads 2.4 pounds. And then you put it on the third time and it reads 1 pound, right? Nothing about the bananas has changed, but you now have 3 different weight assessments produced by the scale. So obviously there's an issue there, right? So this is what we're talking about, this consistency, right? This idea that the scale is not reliable for us to use as measurement. So you can see here in the continued example of the bananas, you can replace the bananas in this analogy with any measurement used in strategic communication research, right? So if you want to conduct a study about leadership effectiveness and communication skills, then you want a good measure of communication competence for people to use to assess their leader. If the items in the measure are not understood from participant to participant, then the measure will not be able to provide consistent measurement, right? So this is why word choice is extremely important. Definitions, extremely important, because we want to actually be measuring what we think we're measuring. We want everything to be reliable. We want our results to be valid. Another important concept in this module is sampling. So we're going to talk about, how we can choose a sample that actually represents what it is meant to represent. So that's what this chapter delves into. So this is a great table talking about different types of sampling. Another thing you're going to want to think about with your specific project is your sample size. So in terms of, this is going to vary for every research project that you have, but how many people are you going to include? What do you think would be representative? Another important concept to think about here is qualitative versus quantitative data, right? Which we've been reading about all semester already. So quantitative, numerical, qualitative, these are the kinds of data that, is really best explored, not in numbers, but with rich description. So you can see here, your goal with qualitative data would be rich description rather than the ability to make claims about patterns or trends as you would when you collect quantitative data. So unlike qualitative data, your goal in collecting and analyzing quantitative data is the ability to show and compare trends through statistical reasoning. And so this is definitely something to consider. And, you know, I've done different sample sizes. Sometimes I've done just one course of students. So if I've done educational research, I will just poll 1 or 2 classes. And then, you know, that is representative of the student body, right? So there has to just be some definition of how you think what your sample size is representative. And we can discuss that when the time comes in your project. So this is sample sizes for a 95% confidence interval using a probability sample. So if your population size, for example, is 1,000, then you need a sample size of 278 to achieve a 95% confidence interval, right? So if you want a higher, you would sample more. If you are fine with the lower confidence interval, then you could sample less. And that's what we're kind of looking at here. So as we move through the parameters of your specific project, you will decide this. If some of you are doing qualitative data, then, you know, this is not as big of an issue. And you're just going to set the parameters of your own research project. So whatever you decide, we will make sure that, you know, you're choosing the correct population for what you're trying to achieve.